you doing, everybody? Old Guy Jammin' here. We are going to talk about a buttload of overdrives today. Got about $2,000 worth of overdrives here. Oh my gosh. And you're thinking, geez, $2,000? However, I'm going to just tell you, some people smoke that in about, 6 months. I'm not buying tobacco. I'm not buying the booze with it. I've spent my $2,000 and I've got something really worthwhile. So let's talk about how I like these. Now, honestly, I just got this, but I just keep hearing about it from everybody. I'm not a big fan of Boss because they're not true bypass pedals. In my experience, there's a little gain loss or signal loss when you use Boss, but maybe not such a big deal. However, I'm looking forward to using this, and this is probably the oldest pedal in history, the SD one, the yellow Boss pedal. I had one of these 30 years ago when I was jamming. It was the first pedal I bought, and now it's the last bottle I've bought. How cool is that? Anyway, looking forward to using this. Mint condition, used, they're dirt cheap. So we'll let you know. I haven't used that one. However, this one, handmade by Carl at CMOP Mods. Prefer this with Fender type amps because it works less as a bass cut, to tame a high gain amp. It's more of a transparent light overdrive like the Timmy. All right, had a Timmy, got rid of it because I couldn't get it bright enough. So the Brownie by CMAP Mods is a good drive, but works best with Fender amps. But don't use it a lot. The Nux Horseman, is a famous copy, or a copy of a famous drive. This is pretty cool. It's about $60 on Amazon, and it's got, it works really well. And it's small, which is nice, and it has two stages. It has the ice stage and the fire stage. If you hold down on this, a second LED comes on, and you've got a little bit of a boost. It's just a gain boost. It's not really a volume boost, but good controls, solid pedal, works nice. All right, now the rat pedal. Who doesn't need a rat pedal? I don't use it a whole lot, but there are those cases where I want it and I've got it if I need it, and they're affordable. Super solid built. It weighs as much as any three of these combined, and it has that scooped 80s metal tone. It also, though, crazy enough, if you turn the distortion way down and the volume up, you do get a very good bluesy drive from the rat pedal, which is kind of interesting. So, it's a good one to have in your arsenal. Now, these three here, I wouldn't really consider overdrive pedals. I would consider them distortion pedals. If you have nothing but a clean platform amp, this EVH distortion overdrive is a dream come true. It comes with a noise gate, it's got a 3-band EQ, and it also has a boost on it right there. All right, and so that is a really nice pedal to have available to yourself. You can pick these up fairly cheap because they've been around forever. However, I wouldn't consider it an overdrive. It's more of a high gain distortion pedal. Same thing for this. Now, we come up to these two. These two are kind of famous. While I was looking around scanning for overdrive pedals, I would always search for the top 10 overdrive pedals. And you would get list after list after list. A list from Guitar World, a list from Premier Guitar, a list from the Gear Page, a list from whoever. And consistently, the super badass distortion comes up. It is a dynamite distortion pedal, and it says distortion right there. It doesn't say I'm an overdrive. It's a distortion pedal, and it does a dang good job of it. 3-band EQ. Doesn't have a lot of dB. There's not a lot of volume boost, headroom. But what it does really well. It does compress, though, a little earlier than this, the Angry Charlie. Now, if you watch that pedal show with Mike and Mick, is it? I don't know. But the pedal show with those other two guys, they love the Angry Charlie. So I picked one of these up. Again, it's affordable. And this one is a little more open than this, but still, it's got a sweet spot right about there where it's at, and it really is more of a distortion pedal to be used with a Fender type amp. Much up beyond that, doesn't sound real good. Below that, doesn't sound real good. But right there in the sweet spot, it's got some good stuff going on. But again, it's a distortion pedal, not an overdrive. Now, the funny thing is, if I could just take a side note for a second, is when you do search for overdrive pedals, if you get off into gear page threads or some sort of forum area, boards, my gosh, the number of overdrives that people will suggest is mind-numbing. Names I've never heard of, and yet they swear it's the best overdrive they've ever used. And there'll be 7 or 8 names of overdrives that I've never even heard of. And I've been scouring top 10 overdrives for years, especially in the year, in just, last year and the year before, while I was getting into this and trying to develop my pedal board. I was really looking for some of the best, like the Timmy, which I had and got rid of. Not that it's a bad pedal, just didn't work for me. All right, let's move on. Here we got the TS9. I like it. Here is the TS9 Mini, the Tube Screamer Mini. There are people that have said these two are really compatible, but I don't feel like the Mini, and this is currently for sale, has as much headroom, girth, oomph inside of its case as this guy right here. I think if you're going to go with a Tube Screamer, go with the TS8 or the TS9. The TS9 is more my thing. It's a little more aggressive than the 8 anyway. So I'm going with this, and I would say don't waste your time with that. Even though it's a cool small pedal, if that's all the room you have, then that's all the room you have. But if you can, just go with the big one. It's got more headroom. It's got a nicer tone. Works well with a lot of different pedals. Okay? So there you go. There's that advice. Now, moving on. Now we're working our way to the holy grail of overdrive pedals. But coming up next, we have a few fuzz type pedals. Now, a lot of these are more Fender type pedals. As we move our way up here, we're getting into pedals that work really well as bass cut pedals. They work great with high gain amps to tighten up a tone and make it more aggressive. This one, but we're not there yet, all right? And that reminds me, I got, another one right in there. I forgot it was down there. And I have another one at work, which is the SL Drive by Exotic. I meant to grab it and bring it home just for this video, but I forgot it, and I figured, whatever. They'll know what it is. The SL Drive by Exotic is one of the most finicky pedals I've ever played with. Nice pedal, but it works with some amps, and with others, it's terrible. It does have a lot of headroom, but it's a really finicky pedal, but it has its niche enough so that I decided to keep it. The SL Drive, and there's a dip switch inside. You can do bass cuts and adjust some of the tone. So pretty cool pedal, built really well, super solid, but it just doesn't work with everything. But when it does work, it's cool. Now this did get an award from Premier Guitar, the Seymour Duncan 805. It's kind of like, and I've got it here by the Soul Food, because it's a lot like the Soul Food, except this has a 3-band EQ. All right, so if you're in love with the Soul Food, and I love the Soul Food, and you can get these for like $50. Great pedal. It's got a certain amount of mid-range, pretty mid-range dominant, I would say, but it's also tight, and it provides a very tube-like distortion. It's not digitized like this one, where you get a digital feeling from the Super Badass. This one is a little more space between the waves. Really develops a very nice, warm, usable, classic type distortion that's tight. Very nice. Love the Soul Food. Now, the 805 is very similar to that, but it's got the 3-band EQ. So it's just like this, but you have more tone variability. Works on 9 or even up to 18 volts. Tone and drive. Super, and this did get some awards. All right, moving on. We got the Tumnus. Now the Tumnus also is a transparent type overdrive. Works best with pedal platform type amps. That would be a Fender type amp, and or like the Marshall JCM 800 type amp on that clean channel, on the low channel. Very nice because it also has a 3-band EQ. It has a normal and hot switch you can switch behind, and switching variability is pretty cool. It's not always a good thing, sometimes less is more, but nice level and nice gain controls, and this is transparent. So really nice, and it's affordable as well. Getting back to that switchable stuff, this Angry Charlie, last thing I wanted to do, domino effect. The Angry Charlie is based on a crunch box, and you can still find the crunch box around. I had one, but for me it was option overload. It has several toggle switches, 3-band EQ, gain, drive, etc., etc. But there's so much going on that I found it not easy to work with. But this is based on the crunch box. So if you're someone who doesn't mind the switches and a lot of options, maybe the crunch box is for you. I had one, played with it for a week or so, and it just didn't find a place in my heart, so I got rid of it. But that's based on that. All right, moving on. Now, these two are super cool pedals. Let's do this one first. The Killing Floor works extremely well with Marshall amps, especially down here is just a low signal booster for when you want to kick into a lead, or you want just a little more drive. You keep it down here a little bit low. It has a switch over here for high, medium, and low, and that's a high pass filter, so you can have it a little brighter, less bright, or even less brighter, so like dark. But other than that, it does not have a separate gain and volume control, so this kind of does it all. That's just one drawback of it. Now down here it sounds great, but as you go up, it tends towards fuzz, a fuzz tone, which is kind of cool, but the volume goes up as well. But there's applications for that. But I love this in driving my DSL-20 and driving the DSL-5, just having the chicken head knob up midway, just, quarter of the way or so, really lends itself to a great overdriven sound, great lead tone. Get the DSL where you want it for rhythms, kick that on, and the combination of gain and volume right in this area works super for a lead. Now, this is also a fuzz type pedal. The 385 has bass and treble, gain and volume, made by Walrus Audio, based on old projector amplification circuits. And this is a super interesting pedal because it's kind of like the Soul Food, and it's kind of like the Killing Floor. As the gain gets up to about halfway, we start getting into fuzz territory. So if the gain is below half, we are very much in the Soul Food park, but with separate bass and treble. All right. And as the gain gets up past noon, we start getting into the Killing Floor or fuzz territory. So super cool pedal. I was talking to a guy at Sweetwater actually, and some time ago, this was a long time ago, and I said, okay, man, since I got you on, he called me because my regular guy was out somewhere. But since I had him on the phone, I said, what's the coolest overdrive you've ever played with? And he said, the 385. Well, hey, that's good enough for me. And it's been talked about a lot as well. There's lots of information about the 385. And because it's been out for so long, it's available and affordable. So, neat pedal. I like that one quite a bit. Better than this one. Works great. This works a little better because separate controls. Now we're getting into the creme a la creme, the top drawer, the bee's knees, the cream of the crop. We'll do this one first because this is the Precision Drive. Monsieur Mansour, is that his name? Masha? I can't remember right now. Monsieur Mansour. You know who I'm talking about. This attack decides the amount of bass cut that is given to the circuit, the amount of bass cut you have in your tone. And then we have a volume, which is pretty good. There's not a lot of headroom with this. The volume kind of peaks out about halfway up. The drive is there, but there's no reason in using the drive because this is not a distortion pedal and it's not an overdrive pedal. It's purely a cut pedal to make a high gain amp even tighter. That's what it's for. It does not sound good as a standalone pedal. So having the drive there is kind of silly, but it's there. And then the bright switch is already really, really bright. And so I don't know. The pedal, if you were to have this up, I mean, your amp has got to be incredibly bright for you to want to turn this down. Because as is, this thing is bright, bright, bright. So that's always down anyway. But the cool thing about this is it does come with a noise gate. It works incredibly well. You can decide at what frequency you want to start cutting bass out of your tone with this knob right here. Number 3 is where most people like it. 3 and 4 seems to be the sweet spot for this pedal. The noise gate is adjustable, which is a really nice feature if you have a high gain amp that's particularly noisy. You can set that to come on wherever you like. The threshold is a little different. It can be really quick, or it can let the tone decay for longer before it pops on. Other than that, it's kind of, that's all it does, all right? But it's cool. I may not keep it, though, because it's singular in use. Now, I'm going to ask you, too, what pedal do I not have that I need? I keep hearing about the Dirty Tree by Pepper's Pedals. There's been some famous YouTubers that reviewed it, said it's amazing, but I don't know. Is it going to be just like that? I don't know. It's an affordable pedal as well. Now, the cream a la creme, the Mesa Flux Drive, has got to be lately my favorite, and the OCD has always been and will continue to be my favorite. UC Davis Music. I think is it UC Davis? Davis Music. Maybe it's just Davis Music. Kept telling me I had to get one of these Tone Burst from Mesa, and I do like it. There is not a lot of gain available. It's very much just a clean boost type pedal. It's very subtle, but what it does really good. The next stage up from the Tone Burst is the Flux Drive. So I do like this, and I really appreciate the recommendation. It not only tightens up a loose amp, but it works well as a very mild, transparent overdrive. And the build quality on these Mesa pedals is outstanding. Solid boxes, nice controls. Now the Flux Drive, though, has become my go-to. This works not only as a nice soul food type sound if you have the gain up, but with the gain down, volume up, you have bass and treble. It works fantastic as an overdrive pedal to tighten up a loose, heavily driven amp. It's great at that. It has that Mesa characteristic tank, 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 tank. Somehow they built that into this pedal. The kind of tone you get from the Mark V, but it's not as pronounced. It doesn't create a dry and brittle tone like you get with the Mark V. I didn't like that, but when you couple this with a Marshall and or the Engel, you get a tone that's as tight, as tanky as you want. And it also works well as a nice, transparent overdrive. Love this pedal. Now, the OCD. This is, I think, version 1.4. This thing, I hardly ever use it as a drive, but it works great as an overdrive. I often thought I should just get a couple of these and have one set with the drive down, the volume high, and then another one set with the volume low and the drive high, because the overdrive tone is very mid-present, very similar to the Soul Food, I would say. But the neat thing about some of these pedals is how well they work together. These two work incredibly well together. This one can be on, you push this one on, and your lead tone is just searing, sustain, beautiful. Love it. So those two work extremely well together, and many of these do. This works well with those. This works well with those. The TS9 works well with some pedals. There are some others that do not work well. This does not work so well with others. So, you know, again, if you're limited on space or just need something simple, don't plan to expand, that's great. But anyway, these two work really well together. Now, the newest part of the family is this. I love the Flux Drive so much that I went ahead and bit on a used offer from Reverb and got the Flux Drive 5. This thing is proving to be, it's kind of, well, it has a bunch of options on it, right? So it takes some time to get used to it, but I'm finding that I really like it. It is my most expensive pedal. It's pretty pricey, but you're getting the Flux Drive. You're getting a boost, an additional boost. So it's a 2-button overdrive pedal, Flux Drive and boost, and then each channel you can decide, well, each option you can have with the 5-band EQ engaged on this side if you want. Yes or no? You want that engaged? No? Maybe? Yes. And or you can also decide when you hit this more button, do you want the 5-band EQ engaged, or do you want to just rely on what's going on the top with this one right here? So a lot of good options, and it's usable. There isn't a sound on here that I don't like. I'm finding that it works really well with the Marshall JCM 800. And it actually, even though it's a bigger pedal, it reduces space because I don't need an additional EQ pedal on my board somewhere. I've got a drive, I've got a boost, which is these two, right? And I've got the 5-band EQ, the famous Mesa 5-band EQ, which I think is really going to help make my mini rec a lot more enjoyable to play. I had a Mark V. It was brittle and dry, I found, and hurt my ears. I called it ear fatigue. Some people out there gave me a hard time about it, but that's just what I experienced. I couldn't play it for very long without it just hurting and bothering me a bit. So I got a mini rec. Rectoverb first, but I didn't like the speaker in the Rectoverb. So I decided I'd rather just have the head because the Rectoverb plugged into cabinet sounded good, but the Rectoverb with that UK-made V30 in it really hurt. I couldn't play it for very long. Plus, on the Rectoverb and the Mini Rec, I could never get enough mids out of the tone, and I could never get it bright enough without the presence and the treble dimed, and the owner's manual says not to dime the treble or the presence. It can create nasty harmonics in the tube section. So I'm hoping this pedal with its 5-band EQ will make the Mini Rec much more pleasurable to play because it is a unique tone. I'd like to keep it current. Just last week I had it on the block for sale because of the ear fatigue. Something about the mid-range in the Mesa just after a while hurts, and I don't like it. I don't find myself turning it up. It's turning it down. Whereas with the Marshall or the Angle, it's like, gosh, is anyone home? I'm turning this up. And it just keeps getting louder and louder because I love it. So enjoying this, I think it's worth the money. And because of this EQ, I haven't yet, but I'm looking forward to plugging this into the Mini Rec to see if it turns into something that I really enjoy rather than something I have to put up for sale. Because it's a nice amp, right? And it's different than other things I have, which is why we buy all this stuff, because it gives us tonal options. The law of familiarity doesn't stand a chance in a room with this many pedals and this many amps. Never going to run out of new tones. All right, so I hope this has helped you in your search for the perfect overdrive. There is no perfect overdrive, but keep going at it, and you will find eventually the one that's right for you. All right, Old Guy Jammin' is out. See you next time.